Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for this monthly employment data release media call. My name is Allison Hopkins, and I serve as the Deputy Director of External Affairs here at the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Joining me today is Adrian Johnston, Chief Economist for the state of Florida. At the conclusion of this presentation, we will be taking questions from credentialed media. To ask a question, please submit it through the Teams chat feature. Do this by simply hovering over your screen for the chat icon, then click the chat button to enable the conversation feature within our meeting. We will not be able to accept questions through private chat, so please use this option. We will address as many questions as possible, but if your question is not covered, please email media@deo.myflorida.com and our teams will work to get you an answer. Today's presentation is focused on employment data for September 2022. So if you have any questions regarding any other DEO topics, also use the media@deo.myflorida.com to connect with our communications and external affairs team. I will now turn it over to Adrian.
All right, good morning, and thank you, Allison, and thank you all for joining us this morning for the monthly employment data release. At 10 this morning, the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity released September 2022 labor statistics for the state of Florida, as well as sub-state areas, including all metropolitan areas, counties, and large cities. As a reminder, these data were produced by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics through a federal-state cooperative agreement with the Department of Economic Opportunity. Data were collected through a combination of employer and household surveys, administrative records, and statistical modeling techniques. This morning, I will provide details for the September 2022 data release. And please note that these data were collected for the week of September 12th, which means that these numbers for September will not yet show the impacts of Hurricane Ian. As a reminder, the current population survey is used to estimate Florida's unemployment rate, total labor force, and labor force participation rate under the Local Area Unemployment Statistics Program. Since these statistics are based on a survey of households, they capture information about individuals, not jobs, and they are calculated by place of residence, not place of work. So let's get into the numbers. Florida's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in September 2022 was 2.5%. This is a decrease of 0.2 percentage point from the August rate of 2.7% and a decrease of 1.4 percentage points from September of last year. This is the lowest seasonally adjusted statewide unemployment rate in Florida since October 2006. In September 2022, Hendry County had the highest unemployment rate in the state with 4.8%. This was followed by Highlands County at 4.1%. Monroe County had the state's lowest unemployment rate at 1.6%, followed by Miami-Dade County at 2%, and then St. Johns County at 2.1%. The national unemployment rate in September was 3.5%, a decrease of 0.2 percentage point from the August 2022 rate. Florida's statewide unemployment rate has now remained below the national rate for 22 straight months since December of 2020. This unemployment rate for September represented 293,000 jobless individuals out of a labor force in Florida of 10,714,000. Florida's September labor force increased by 8,000 or 0.1% from the month prior. The nation as a whole saw little change in the seasonally adjusted labor force over the month. Compared to September 2021 levels, Florida's labor force saw an increase of 316,000 or 3% over the year. This exceeds the national labor force growth rate, which was at 2% over the year. Over the month, employment in Florida grew by 34,000 and unemployment fell by 27,000. As always, we continue to track the trends in Florida's growing labor force, which is the combination of all currently employed workers, as well as unemployed job seekers who are actively looking for work. Labor force growth continued in September as Florida continues to outpace the nation. As of September 2022, there are now 420,000 more Floridians in the labor force than we had in February 2020. Now moving on to the non-agricultural payroll employment. Job creation data for Florida is measured by the Current Employment Statistics, or CES survey, conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This survey collects data from over 40,000 Florida businesses and establishments each month to measure jobs by industry across the state. Since these statistics are based on a survey of employers, they measure counts of jobs. not individuals, and they capture characteristics of employers such as industry and place of work. Total non-agricultural employment in Florida rose to 9,501,800 jobs in September. This is up 48,800 jobs, or 0.5% from August 2022. This figure is up 463,300 jobs from a year ago, which is an over-the-year increase of 5.1%. Florida's private sector non-agricultural employment rose to 8,403,000 jobs in September, which is up 47,500 jobs, or 0.6% from August. Total private employment was up 439,300 jobs from September 2021. This was an over-the-year increase of 5.8%. All 10 major industry sectors in Florida gained jobs over the month. Education and health services gained 19,100 jobs over the month, or 1.4%, followed by construction at 6,900 jobs, or 1.2%, and leisure and hospitality also at 6,900 jobs, or 0.5%. Education and health services saw its largest seasonally adjusted over the month increase since June of 2020. Most of the growth in this sector occurred in healthcare and social assistance, which gained 13,100 jobs over the month. In particular, hospitals and nursing and residential care facilities have recently shown strong employment recovery. In this graphic, we can see industry recovery in Florida compared to the nation, with Florida shown in blue and the US in green. Industries above zero have more jobs now than in February 2020. We can see that Florida has outperformed the nation in all major industry sectors except for total government. Professional and business services has a very high job growth, both in Florida at 10.2% and nationwide with 4.6%. Financial activities has also grown by 10.2% in Florida, but has shown little change nationally. The other services and education and health services industries are above their pre-pandemic levels in Florida, but still below for the nation. Leisure and hospitality has almost entirely recovered its jobs in Florida, while total government has a similar percentage of jobs left to recover in both areas. This map shows the September 2022 seasonally adjusted local area data. This shows that 19 of the 24 metro areas in Florida had over-the-month job gains. The Gainesville metro area grew at the fastest rate with 0.9%, followed by Port St. Lucie and Crestview, Fort Walton Beach, Destin metro areas at 0.6% each. The metro areas that added the most jobs in September were the Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater metro area with 7,400 jobs, the Orlando, Kissimmee, Sanford area with 6,300 jobs, and the Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach metro area with 4,100 jobs. Among the metro areas with the most growth, seasonal increases in total government and education health services were the biggest drivers of local growth. This is a typical pattern for this type of year. This graph shows the most recent job openings and labor turnover survey data for Florida. Please note that this slide reflects information for August 2022, which is the latest data available. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that the number of job openings, which is shown here in blue, in Florida fell to 605,000 in August. This is an over-the-month decrease of 30,000 jobs. Openings are now down 64,000, or 9.6% from 1 year ago. They also estimate 306,000 quits, which is shown here in red, statewide in August, which is an over-the-month increase of 39,000, which is still up 24,000 from 1 year ago. They also estimate 407,000 hires, shown here in green, statewide in August, which is an over-the-month increase of 31,000. Hires are down 24,000, or 5.6% from 1 year ago. September 30th, the U.S. Department of Commerce released its initial estimate for gross domestic product by state for the second quarter of 2022. This graphic compares real GDP growth in Florida, shown here in blue, and the U.S., which is shown in green, for every quarter since 2019. Florida's real GDP, which means that it was adjusted for inflation, grew at an annualized rate of 1.6% from the first to the second quarter this year. This is up from the 1.5% annualized decline in real GDP we saw in the first quarter. National real GDP declined by 0.6% annualized in the second quarter, marking the second consecutive quarter of negative real GDP growth nationwide. Whereas Florida growth ranked second in the nation for the second quarter of this year. Only 11 of 50 states experienced an over-the-quarter increase in real GDP. Among Florida's industries, arts, entertainment, and recreation, management of companies and enterprises, and accommodation and food services had the highest GDP growth in the second quarter of this year. Finally, I wanted to share that DEO has completed the new long-term employment projections for the year 2030. In this graphic, we can see the projected average annual growth rate by major occupational group in Florida. Total employment in Florida is projected to exceed 10,800,000 jobs in 2030, which is in line with last year's projection of approximately 10,670,000 by 2029. This amounts to a statewide compound annual growth rate of 1.04% across the next 8 years. The fastest growing occupations are those related to healthcare and STEM activities. Detailed statewide and regional projections by occupation and industry are now available online at floridajobs.org. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning for DEO's employment data release for September 2022. I would also like to take a moment just to recognize those folks in Southwest Florida who were affected by Hurricane Ian. We do expect to see some impact on the labor market statistics when we release next month, but that exact impact can vary based on reporting periods and the timing of the storm. So we'll be looking at that very closely in the coming months. This concludes my presentation, and I will be happy to field any questions from credentialed media.
Again, thank you so much for joining us today for the September 2022 rate release. We do have a question from Jim Turner. How much of a change do you anticipate in the October report from September because of Hurricane Ian? It appears there was a jump in the claims within the week ending October 8th, but that has cut back a bit last week.
Thank you very much for the question. As I just kind of alluded to, those variations and changes are very sensitive to the timing, both of the storm and data collection. So I really don't have an answer for you just yet. That's something that we're going to have to see how things pan out. Our team's been looking at past storms, and we've seen tremendous variation across different storms and how they've hit our state. So we don't want to speculate just yet, but we are certainly looking at that very closely, and we will take some time next month to really explain what was impacted either by the timing or what's reflected truly in the numbers.
I don't see any other questions. So if you do have any other questions, please email us at media@deo.myflorida.com. We look forward to having you for our next rate release on November 18th for the numbers from October 2022. Thank you and enjoy your weekend.